I never thought I'd be writing something like this on Reddit, but here I am, spilling out 10 years of marriage like it's some kind of therapy session. You think you know someone, right? You trust them, build a life together, and then they turn around and throw something at you that makes you question everything. I guess I just never expected my wife to cheat on me, at least not in the way she did. It's funny, right? When you hear cheating, you picture something secret, something shady. Late-night texts, sneaking around, and whispered conversations behind closed doors. But no, Lisa, my wife of a decade, came right out with it, bold as brass, offering up the idea of an open relationship like she was doing me a favor. Seriously, is that normal? Am I the crazy one for thinking that's just wrong? I thought we were supposed to be partners, not whatever the hell that is. I'm not a writer or anything, so don't expect this to be some polished story. I'm just a regular guy, scrolling through Reddit like everyone else, and now I'm dumping my marriage problems on the internet because what else can I do? If I'm going through this, maybe someone else has, too. Maybe it'll help me make sense of it all if I lay it out here. So, let me introduce myself properly. My name's Mark. I'm 38, just your average guy. I've been married to Lisa, she's 35, for about 10 years now. We got together when we were younger, full of energy, and everything felt right back then. We had that spark, you know? The kind of chemistry that makes you feel like you've hit the jackpot. She was smart, funny, beautiful, everything I could ever want in a partner. And for a while, it was great. We were great. But 10 years is a long time. Life happens, people change, and things between us, well, they cooled off. I'm not gonna lie, we were tired of each other. It wasn't like we hated each other or anything, far from it. But when you live with someone for that long, share a bed, a bathroom, bills, groceries, and God knows what else, you lose that magic somewhere along the way. It becomes routine. And, yeah, the sex suffered. At first, I didn't think much of it. We were busy with work, life, and everything else. But months went by, and the bedroom was dead silent. And when we did try, it felt forced, like we were checking off some kind of marital duty. I'm not proud of it, but there were nights when I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was just how things were going to be from now on. I figured maybe we just needed help, you know, so I suggested Lisa see a psychologist. Maybe there was something going on that she wasn't telling me. Surprisingly, she agreed without much pushback. I thought, okay, maybe we're finally gonna work through this, but nope. Those therapy sessions did jack. If anything, things got weirder between us. I don't know if she was really talking in those sessions or just going through the motions, but whatever was going on in her head, it wasn't fixing our problems. In fact, everything took a nosedive right after she started hanging out with Amanda again. Now, Amanda, don't even get me started. I never liked her. She's one of those types who thinks she's got life all figured out because she's free-spirited or whatever. Every time she's around, I get that vibe like she's quietly judging our relationship, thinking she knows better. She's divorced, by the way, which isn't a surprise, considering the way she talks about marriage. To her, it's some outdated institution that people only do because they're too afraid to be alone. So, when Lisa started hanging out with her more and more, I knew something was up. I just didn't think it would lead to this. One night, after Lisa had spent the whole damn day with Amanda, she came home, and I could tell something was off. She had this weird look, like she was nervous but trying to cover it up with some fake confidence. That's when she sat me down on the couch, all serious-like, and hit me with it. "Mark," she said, "I've been thinking about our marriage." And you know when someone starts a sentence like that, it's never going to end well. I could feel the knot in my stomach tighten up, but I tried to stay calm, hear her out. Then she said it. She actually suggested we open our marriage. My first thought was, is this some kind of sick joke? But no, she was dead serious. She said it like it was the most logical thing in the world, like she was offering up a new way to save us. According to her, it wasn't cheating because I'd know about it, because I'd know who she was with and where she was going. Like somehow that would make it all okay. She used words like freedom and trust as if that's what this was about. I sat there, just staring at her, trying to process what the hell she was saying. My wife, the woman I'd spent a decade with, was basically asking for permission to screw other people. How was that not cheating? How was that supposed to be some kind of solution to our problems? I couldn't wrap my head around it. It felt like a betrayal, like she'd already made up her mind and was just waiting for me to give her the green light. I tried to ask her why. Why now? Why this? She went on about how Amanda had helped her see things differently, how we were stuck in a rut, and this was a way out. It's not betrayal if you know about it, she said, like that somehow made it less painful. Like being told your wife wants to sleep with other men is supposed to hurt less if she's upfront about it. The whole conversation just collapsed. I was too pissed, too shocked to even think straight, and she was too convinced she was right. We didn't resolve anything. We didn't yell or scream, but the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Eventually, we both just got up and went to separate rooms, like strangers in our own home. She's probably in the other room right now, texting Amanda, getting more ideas about how to turn our marriage into some kind of open-door policy. So, after that night, after she dropped the whole open relationship bomb on me, things didn't just go back to normal. Of course, they didn't. I mean, how could they? Lisa seemed to think everything was settled, like I'd agreed to her ridiculous idea just by not storming out that night. The next few weeks were a blur of tension and awkward silences. She started going out more. And not just with Amanda. No, she was going on dates. Actual, real dates. With other guys. I don't know what the hell I was thinking letting it happen, but I guess I just froze. Part of me wanted to walk away, pack up, and be done with it. Another part of me, I don't know, was still in shock, trying to wrap my head around how we'd ended up here. She'd leave the house, dressed up more than I'd seen her in months, perfume thick in the air, and just go. Like this was the new normal. And every time she left, I felt a little more disgusted. I wanted to scream at her, at myself, but I couldn't even muster the energy. Instead, I stayed home, nursing a beer, stewing in my own frustration. The idea of leaving her was there, looming, but for some reason, I hadn't acted on it yet. Maybe it was the years together, the shared history, or maybe I was just being a coward, afraid to make the first move. One night, after she'd gone out yet again, I decided I couldn't just sit there anymore. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't going to feed me some feel-good crap about relationships. So, I texted my buddy, Sam. We've known each other since college, and he's the one guy I can count on to give it to me straight, no BS. We agreed to meet at our usual bar, one of those dive joints with sticky floors, a pool table in the back, and dim lighting. It wasn't fancy, but it was our spot. I walked in, spotting him at the bar already nursing a drink. Sam was the kind of guy who always had a half smirk on his face, like he knew something you didn't. He wasn't married, never really believed in it, so I wasn't sure how he'd take all this. I sat down next to him, ordered a whiskey, and let out a deep sigh. "What's going on, man?" "You look like shit," he said, without even glancing my way. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I just told him everything, how Lisa had dropped the open relationship bomb on me, how she was going on dates with other guys, and how I felt completely stuck. Sam listened, nodding here and there, his smirk slowly fading as the story unfolded. When I finally finished, he looked at me for a second, then said, "Man, you need to get the hell out of that marriage. She's walking all over you. Divorce her, take half of everything, and move on." I knew he'd say something like that. It's what I wanted to hear, honestly. But then he paused, took a sip of his drink, and added, "But, before you do that, why don't you make things a little interesting?" I raised an eyebrow, not sure what he meant. "You want to get back at her, right?" Sam leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Well, you can't just roll over and let her have all the fun. Why don't you go out, pick up someone yourself, and bring her home tonight? Show Lisa what it feels like to be on the other side." I blinked, surprised at how casually he suggested it. "You mean, just bring a girl home? Like some kind of revenge?" He shrugged, that smirk creeping back onto his face. "Why not? She's already made it clear she doesn't give a damn about your marriage anymore. You want to leave? Fine, but before you go, make her feel what you've been feeling. She's out there, doing whatever the hell she wants, and you're just sitting at home like some kind of chump. Take advantage of the situation. Hit her where it hurts." At first, I shook my head. "I don't know, man. That feels wrong, like lowering myself to her level." Sam chuckled, finishing off his drink. "Wrong? Come on, Mark, what's wrong is letting her walk all over you while she's out banging other dudes. Look, you don't have to do anything crazy. Just go out, have some fun, and show her she's not the only one who can play this game." I sat there, swirling the whiskey in my glass, the idea bouncing around in my head. It was insane. Completely out of character for me. But at the same time, the thought of getting even, of seeing the look on her face when I walked in with another woman, that was tempting. Maybe Sam had a point. Why should I sit at home, feeling miserable, while she was out, exploring her freedom? If she wanted an open relationship, then maybe it was time to show her what that really looked like. I sighed, finally downing the rest of my drink. "All right, screw it. Let's do this." Sam grinned wide. "Now you're talking. Let's hit up the club and find you someone." We left the bar and headed downtown, straight to one of the nightclubs we used to hit up back in the day. It wasn't exactly my scene anymore, but tonight wasn't about that. It was about making a point, about taking back some control. The place was packed, the music loud, and the lights flashing in every direction. It felt like another world, far removed from the quiet misery of my marriage. Sam led the way, grabbing drinks and scanning the crowd like he was hunting for a prize. At first, I felt out of place, but after a couple of shots, I loosened up. I mean, why not, right? Lisa was out doing her thing. It was time I did mine. So, after Sam and I got to the club, things escalated quickly. The place was packed, bodies moving to the bass-heavy music, lights flashing in a haze of neon. I hadn't been to a club like this in years, and it felt like a different world, like I'd left all the crap with Lisa back home and stepped into a place where none of that mattered. I wasn't thinking about the past decade of marriage or her open relationship crap. All I wanted to do was forget, even if just for a night. Sam and I hit the bar first, knocking back a couple of shots. Tequila, whiskey, whatever was in front of us. It didn't take long for the alcohol to start working its magic. The frustration, the anger, the feeling of being played, they all started to melt away. And then, she walked in. She was stunning. I mean, the kind of woman you notice even in a crowded, dark, and sweaty club. Tall, brunette, a tight dress that hugged her curves just right. I watched her for a while, trying to find an excuse to approach her, but after a few more drinks, I didn't need one. I made my way through the crowd and leaned in with some half-sober line I don't even remember now. But it didn't matter. She smiled back at me, and that was all I needed. We started dancing. At first, it was just casual, like two strangers having fun. But the more we drank, the closer we got. Her hands were on my chest, my arms wrapped around her waist, and suddenly, it was like no one else in the club existed. Everything blurred together, the music, the lights, the people, and I didn't care about anything except being with her in that moment. Before I knew it, we were making out, and I was feeling more alive than I had in months. It was reckless, messy, but I didn't give a damn. She pulled me in closer, and I could feel the heat between us building. One thing led to another, and soon we were slipping away from the dance floor, weaving through the crowd toward the back of the club. We stumbled into the men's room, laughing like a couple of teenagers sneaking around. The second we were inside, she pushed me against the wall, kissing me hard, and I couldn't think about anything else. We didn't waste any time. I mean, we were in a freaking club bathroom. It wasn't exactly a place for romance. But it didn't matter. I was lost in the moment, in her, and we just went for it. Right there. When it was over, we stood there for a minute, catching our breath, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. She looked at me with a satisfied grin, fixing her hair in the mirror. And that's when something hit me, an idea that, in my drunk and angry state, seemed like the perfect way to get back at Lisa. I turned to her, leaning against the sink, and said, "You know, my wife just asked for an open relationship." Her eyes widened, and she raised an eyebrow. "Wait, you're married?" I nodded, smirking a little. "Yeah, but that's not the interesting part." She suggested we start seeing other people, and I didn't really give her an answer. "But now I've got an idea." She seemed intrigued, her interest piqued, though I could tell she was still processing the fact that I was married. "What's the idea?" she asked, crossing her arms, leaning against the counter like she wasn't sure whether to laugh or be curious. I took a deep breath, the alcohol giving me more confidence than I probably should have had. "Come back to my place. Let's have sex again, but this time, in front of her." For a second, she just stared at me like she wasn't sure if I was serious or completely insane. But then, to my surprise, a slow smile spread across her face. "You want to have sex with me, in front of your wife, to get back at her?" "Yeah," I said, feeling a rush of adrenaline just thinking about it. She's been going out, doing her own thing, and I'm supposed to be fine with it. So why not show her what it feels like? You're beautiful, and I'm sure she'd hate it. It's the perfect revenge. She laughed, shaking her head, clearly amused by the whole thing. Well, that's a first. I've never been asked to help someone get revenge on their wife before. I shrugged, grinning. There's a first time for everything, right? She thought about it for a moment, then downed the rest of her drink, her decision made. "All right, let's do it. Sounds like fun." And just like that, the plan was set. I didn't even think twice about what I was doing, about the consequences, or how this might blow up in my face. All I cared about was getting back at Lisa, making her feel the humiliation she'd been putting me through. We left the club together, heading back to my place. The whole way there, I kept imagining Lisa's face when she'd see us. Part of me couldn't believe I was actually doing this, but the other part, the angry, bitter part, wanted this more than anything. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about taking control of something in my life for once. And tonight, that control was going to be mine. We got home late, stumbling through the front door, the buzz of alcohol and adrenaline still pulsing through my veins. My heart was racing, not just from what had happened at the club, but from what was about to go down. The house was dark and quiet. Lisa was already asleep, or so I thought. I had no idea how the night would unfold, but I wasn't backing down now. The girl I'd met, her name was Julia, followed me inside. She had this confident look about her, like this whole situation was some kind of wild adventure for her. We didn't waste any time. We made our way to the living room, and without a second thought, we were on the couch, tangled up in each other again. My mind wasn't on anything else but that moment, fueled by anger, lust, and a deep desire for revenge. Then I heard it, a noise from upstairs. A door creaking open, footsteps. Lisa. She was coming down the stairs. At first, I thought maybe I could play it cool, pretend like nothing was going on. But when she reached the bottom of the stairs and saw us, her face said everything. She froze, her eyes wide with shock. I could see the horror, the disbelief in her expression, and for a split second, I almost felt bad. Almost. "What the hell is going on?" she shouted, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. I didn't stop. Neither of us did. Julia kept going, and I just stared at Lisa, feeling the rush of satisfaction wash over me. Lisa's face twisted in anger, and she took a step toward us, like she was going to try to physically pull us apart. But I raised my hand, palm out, stopping her dead in her tracks. "Free relationship," I said, my voice calm but dripping with sarcasm. "I'm sorry, but isn't this what you wanted?" Lisa's face went pale. Her mouth opened like she wanted to scream, but no sound came out at first. She looked like she was about to say something, but instead, she just stood there, staring at me with a mixture of rage and disbelief. For a moment, I thought she might actually hit me, but then she turned and stormed back upstairs, slamming the bedroom door behind her. And that was it. The moment I'd been waiting for, the revenge I never thought I'd go through with, was happening right in front of me. The rest of the night was a blur of passion and intensity, unlike anything I'd felt in years. It was reckless, sure, but in that moment, it was everything I needed. Julia and I didn't stop. We continued, right there on the couch, no holds barred. It was insane, chaotic, probably the craziest night of my life. And somehow, it was also the best. When the sun started to creep through the blinds, I felt a weird sense of calm wash over me. Julia got dressed, gave me a playful smile, and handed me her phone number. "In case you ever need a repeat performance," she said with a wink before walking out the door, leaving me standing there in the living room. I looked at the number in my hand, and for the first time in weeks, I felt free. Like I'd finally taken back some control. But there was one last thing I needed to do. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, where Lisa had locked herself away all night. I opened the door to find her sitting on the bed, her eyes red from crying, her face hardened with anger and humiliation. She didn't even look at me as I stepped inside. I stood there for a moment, taking in the scene. This was the woman I'd spent a decade with, the woman I thought I'd grow old with. But now, looking at her, all I saw was someone I no longer recognized. "I'm filing for divorce," I said, my voice steady and cold. Lisa didn't flinch. She didn't argue or plead. Instead, she just nodded, her lips tightening into a thin line. "Good," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm happy to agree to that." There was no fight left between us. No more words to say. I turned around and left the room without looking back, the weight of the last 10 years suddenly feeling lighter. It was over. And I couldn't have been more ready to start fresh. The next morning, after the storm that was the previous night, I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a hangover and trying to wrap my head around everything that had just happened. The divorce, the crazy revenge, the fact that I'd just blown up my life in the span of a few hours. But despite all that, one thing kept coming back to me, Julia. She had left her number, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. About her. I don't know why, but after staring at my phone for what felt like forever, I decided to dial her number. Maybe I needed to feel some kind of normalcy after everything that had gone down. Maybe I just needed to see her again, to talk without the madness of last night looming over us. I don't know. But I dialed, and she picked up after a couple of rings. "Hey, it's Mark," I said, suddenly feeling awkward as hell. "From last night." There was a brief pause, and I could almost hear the smirk in her voice. "Yeah, I remember," she said, sounding amused but also a little hesitant. "What's up?" I was wondering if you wanted to grab coffee or something," I said, running my hand through my hair. "You know, actually talk. Without, everything else." She laughed softly. Coffee, huh? After last night? That's a bit of a change of pace. Yeah, well, I muttered, feeling the embarrassment creeping in. Last night was something else. Figured we could talk like normal people for a change. There was a moment of silence before she answered. Okay. Coffee sounds good. We met up at a small cafe not too far from my place, somewhere neutral, where the insanity of the last 24 hours could feel distant, like it hadn't actually happened. When I saw her walk in, I couldn't help but feel a little weird about it all. I mean, we'd hooked up in a club bathroom and then had sex in front of my wife. That wasn't exactly a typical first encounter. But now, here we were, sitting across from each other, both of us a little awkward and unsure of what to say. At first, we didn't talk much. We were both kind of embarrassed, trying to avoid eye contact and pretending to care more about the coffee than the giant elephant in the room. Finally, Julia broke the silence. So, that was an interesting night, she said, giving me a small, almost sheepish smile. I nodded, chuckling awkwardly. Yeah, that's one way to put it. I'm not usually that guy, you know. Neither am I, she said quickly, taking a sip of her coffee. Honestly, I wasn't even supposed to be there. I just kind of ended up at the club by accident. By accident? I raised an eyebrow, curious now. She sighed, leaning back in her chair. Yeah, my boyfriend, well, ex-boyfriend now, dumped me a few days ago. We'd been together for a while, and out of nowhere, he just tells me he's moving to a different city and doesn't want to do the whole long-distance thing. So I went to the club to blow off some steam, clear my head. And then, well, you know the rest. I wasn't expecting that. I guess I'd just assumed she was there for a good time, but hearing her story made me feel a bit guilty for what we'd done. It wasn't just a crazy night for her, it was an escape, something to distract her from her own pain. In a way, we were both trying to get away from the messes in our lives. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, genuinely meaning it. That's rough. Breakups, they suck. She smiled a little at that, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Yeah, they do. I wasn't sure how to steer the conversation from there, but I figured it was time to come clean about my side of things. I told Lisa I'm filing for divorce, I said, watching her expression closely. Her eyes widened slightly. Really? That was quick. Yeah, I guess last night was the final straw, I said, running a hand through my hair again. I couldn't keep doing it anymore. She's been going out, seeing other guys. I don't know why I let it drag on as long as I did. But after what I did, I realized there's no going back. It's over. She nodded slowly, processing what I'd just told her. That sounds complicated. Yeah, that's one way to put it, I said, echoing her words from earlier. It's a mess, honestly. We were together for 10 years, and then one day, she drops the open relationship thing on me like it's normal. I guess I should have seen the signs, but I didn't. And now, well, here we are. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us lost in our own thoughts. I didn't know what I expected from this coffee meeting, but I hadn't anticipated feeling this strange sense of connection to her. She wasn't just some random girl from the club anymore. She had her own story, her own pain, and somehow, we'd crossed paths at just the right, or wrong, moment. I could feel something growing inside me, some kind of sympathy, or maybe even something more, but I was too afraid to say it out loud. I didn't know how to navigate this. I didn't even know if I wanted to. Part of me was still in shock from everything that had happened, and the other part of me was scared to admit that I might actually want to see where this went with Julia. But I kept it to myself, sipping my coffee and stealing glances at her, wondering if she felt the same. The divorce process is almost over now, and I can't even begin to describe the relief I feel. It's like this huge weight I've been carrying around for years is finally lifting off my shoulders. Lisa and we were done long before she suggested the open relationship. I think I knew it deep down, but I was too stuck in the routine of it all to admit it. Now that it's nearly over, I can finally breathe again. I can finally focus on the things that actually matter, like building something real with someone new. Speaking of, Julia and I have gotten pretty close since that wild night. And by close, I mean we've been living together for a little while now. Yeah, I know it's fast, but sometimes things just happen that way. After everything that went down, it just felt right. We both came from places of hurt, both needed someone to lean on, and somehow we've ended up building something good out of all the chaos. It hasn't been all smooth sailing, though. Lisa, being the person she is, tried to mess things up for us. At first, she acted like she didn't care about the divorce, like she was glad to be rid of me. But when she found out I was with Julia, she went off the rails a bit. Tried to spread rumors about us, said some nasty things behind my back, even showed up at my place a couple of times, causing a scene. I think it finally hit her that I was moving on, and she couldn't handle it. But here's the thing, none of it worked. Julia didn't let Lisa's antics get to her, and honestly, neither did I. We're too solid for that kind of drama. I think that just made Lisa angrier. From what I've heard, she's been throwing herself into casual relationships, hopping from guy to guy, like she's trying to prove something. Every few weeks, there's a new guy on her arm. I get it, she's searching for something to fill the void. But the way she's going about it, I don't see it ending well for her. It's not my problem anymore, though. I'm out, and that's all that matters. Anyway, I wanted to thank all of you who've followed along with this story and supported me. It's been a crazy ride, and I didn't expect to find so much comfort in sharing all of this. Your comments, advice, and encouragement helped me get through some of the toughest moments of my life, and for that, I'm grateful. As for the future, I'm excited. Julia and I are in a good place, and for the first time in a long time, I'm actually looking forward to what comes next. That being said, I'm always open to advice. Life can be unpredictable, as I've learned all too well, so if anyone has any tips for navigating a fresh start after a messy divorce, I'm all ears. Thanks again, everyone. Here's to new beginnings, better relationships, and hopefully a drama-free future. Wish me luck. Update. It's been 2 years since my last update, and I thought it was time to check back in. A lot has changed since then, and for once, I can actually say things are going really well. Life's taken some unexpected turns, but this time, in the best possible way. First off, Julia and I got married about a year ago. It was a small, intimate ceremony, nothing over the top, just close friends and family. Honestly, after everything that happened with my previous marriage, it felt amazing to start fresh with someone who truly understands me. And here's the big news, we're expecting a daughter. She's due in a couple of months, and I'm already over the moon about it. I never thought I'd be this excited to become a dad, but here we are, getting ready to start a family. It feels surreal. On top of that, I've been keeping busy with a small business I started. I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial itch, and after the divorce, I figured it was the perfect time to give it a shot. It's nothing huge, just a little home renovation company. We focus on kitchen and bathroom remodels, and I've got a small crew helping me out. Business is steady, and it's honestly been a great way to channel my energy into something productive. I love the hands-on work, and being my own boss has been more fulfilling than I ever imagined. Now, as for my ex, you all probably remember what I said a while back, that her lifestyle wasn't going to end well. Well, turns out, I was right. From what I've heard, Lisa's been dealing with some pretty serious consequences. Word around town is she caught something, a venereal disease that's tough to treat. It's not the kind of thing you wish on anyone, but it looks like all those casual relationships caught up with her. And there's been some bad rumors about her too, you know, the kind that spread fast in small towns. People talk, and from what I hear, it's not been easy for her. Don't get me wrong, I'm not celebrating her downfall or anything like that. I'm not the type to find joy in someone else's misery. But in a way, it feels like everyone ended up where they were supposed to. I got my fresh start, and she's dealing with the consequences of her choices. Life has a funny way of evening things out, I guess. Anyway, I just wanted to give a quick update and thank you all again for sticking with me through this crazy journey. Your support meant more than you know, and I appreciate everyone who took the time to listen and offer advice. Here's to the future and whatever it brings. Take care, and thanks for all the attention.